Antoine, come.
I think I'm gonna just be a voice today in the back. You don't need me.
And this mayor, I mean, sorry, but most probably he has no clue about water.
Oh, that was
I think that's the no. That is the sidetrack here. You're putting me on.
cheap shots.
I know.
Let's say I quit my job.
I would not hire you.
I come here
sure. No, I would.
and I start operating that plant. Will they listen more to me? No. Yeah.
So then even you can operate it.
Yeah. Oh, low blow.
Come on, that was easy.
You see what I mean? Why do you come and tell that at that stage? Come on, that was so... I was like, am I even witnessing that? Hey, first time in 46 years. But it's very clear why it was the first time in 46 years. Who wants that shit?
Don't be shy. You have to come.
Yeah, but you're gonna make a lot of jokes about...
Yes, I will do a lot of jokes, and for sure. I mean, look at you.
Hi, everybody.
Shame on you. Or is it the new fashion style from Paris? We have the water show. You have to be dressed smart if you want to look smart.
Let me crack the secret. We are recording from beautiful Austria.
Welcome.
And Björn was clever. Björn took the train. I was stupid. I took the plane. Guess what happened? My bags didn't arrive the same time that I arrived. If you see me wearing a different outfit, it's because at some point they bring my bags. But for now, I have to live with that.
We have to live with that, right?
Come on, are you really shocked about that? Are we really still on that? We're 21st century. We can be dressed as we want. I mean, it's like McDonald's. Come as you are. No, that's Nirvana. Or is it like but it's the same. So for today, we have your editorial, which is about...
Today we will talk about, how long does it take, or let's say how much time you have to invest to get trained on this water treatment plant.
And I'm taking the Wayback Machine because I like to tell you a bit about the UN Water Conference and the weird stuff which happened there. But we also have a very interesting deep dive with a guest.
We want to talk about the online microbiological monitoring and how this can really change the regulation, the water treatment plant, the industry, and things like that. Pretty interesting. You should listen.
So you see a packed agenda. You won't even notice how I'm dressed because the content is going to be great. Let's go to the show.
You did it by purpose, right? Did you?
No, you know it. So you've heard all the jokes that Björn already made in the introduction, so let me continue on that. You see that maybe I'm a bit pissed at KLM, so that's the reason for this special outfit. But that were the intro being done. I mean, you know it. We start with Björn's editorial, so Björn, the scene is yours.
Thank you very much, Antoine. And you know what? I was thinking just this morning, I mean, we are here in the beautiful waterworks somewhere here in Austria. So that means this waterwork is for around 650 to 800 people. The fresh water is distributed to this amount of people. And we give the responsibility to someone. I don't want to blame this person personally, but we give it to someone who has a 2-day training. So the most important stuff we need, water, we need it everywhere. It's the most important one. We need it for our daily life. We give it to someone who has a 2-day training. If you have this kind of communication with these people, they are responsible in this village here for each and everything, for the roads, for gardening, for the graveyards, for everything. And the water, the fresh water. They are responsible that the people, the 650 people, they have fresh water every day. And I give you an example. If I want to have a sailing license, I need a medical check, I need a lot of money, I need a lot of time, I have to go to a training course which takes days, theoretically and practically on board, for a sailing license. But our most important material we need for our daily life, we are give to people. And that is what I don't understand. I started my career years ago, you would say ages.
Hey, that's cheating! You can't do that!
But years ago, exactly selling chemicals to waterworks and for waterworks. I have been to, many places like this. We have the basins where we store all the fresh water and things like that. And at this time it was, my job, the chemicals for cleaning, for disinfection, things like that. And we emptied a couple of times the basins. We found wine bottles, we found sludge, we found all kind of dirt in these kind of things. Because exactly of that, these small waterworks, we give it to people without having the education. So again, I don't want to blame the person who's responsible for that here. But even this person has no one to talk to. Because in this village, who's the next person? It's a mayor. And this mayor, I mean, sorry, but most probably he has no clue about water. Why are we doing that? I don't get it. I have never understood that. Yes, for sure, it's just a small waterwork, just 650 people. But what if something goes wrong? And that is exactly the point. I don't understand why we don't train our, operators. Even if they are very, very small, we don't train them enough that they are at least
better educated. I get your point. I see where you're coming from. If we had that discussion 20 or 30 years ago, maybe I would have agreed with you.
okay.
But in the age of digitization, process automation, smart devices, smart process, do you really need to be that trained? I find it pretty cool that the guy is trained at all.
Okay.
Because you could imagine that those devices are clever enough so that if something really weird happened, you would see it by the output analysis, which is probably online monitoring, and which will tell you if anything is bad. I mean, we're in Austria, we're not in the middle of nowhere, so I guess there must be some smart watching over what they produce.
Is that really the case? Still today, all the waterworks, hopefully they get at least an alert or whatever on their mobile. But that's it. Maybe they can control or they can monitor a little bit of the quality. But that's it. We are still in the phase that we are not as smart as we all think. I know where you're coming from, that we have all these cool startups. We have a lot of, cool technology you can
Not only
implement.
startups at that
Yeah, sure. But they are not as much implemented because
That's a different problem.
because
Yeah.
this person who's responsible was a 2-day training. He should decide whether he goes for online monitoring, whether he goes for, a very next cool, a process.
He's the one deciding. He's the one operating. He's not the one deciding.
Well, but then we are back to the problem. Who's next to the operator as a mayor? I mean, both have to decide whether they spend the next 5,000, 10,000.
We're in Austria. Most probably there's a consulting engineer which is looking over that and which is giving an advice
Okay,
every
I have
no
a
and while.
consulting engineer, and I will consult exactly the technology which I get paid for. Come on, you know exactly the game how it works.
Oh, you're thinking that consultants are not objective. So
not all.
all the consultants watching that, you heard him. You can go in the comments and tell him how bad it is.
What is the?
Oh, that was
I
nasty.
think that's the no. That is a sidetrack here. You're putting me on. Which is fair. I think we should have a discussion about tenders one day and how we influence tenders.
That's
right?
a good one.
But the other thing is really, I mean, again, yes, sure, you have the consultant, and the consultant, he can help you. But the decision maker, who's the decision maker, is the operator and the mayor here in that village.
Okay.
And they have to decide about things they don't understand.
Let's break it down because it's just behind us. What's the
Exactly.
process here?
What is the process here? We have iron manganese removal, we have activated carbon, and then we have UV disinfectant. That's it. It's so much.
We agree.
Got it.
It's not that complex.
It is not that complex, but at least you are serving 650 to 800 people. So if something goes wrong, you are treating 650 to 800 people in a bad way.
Yeah.
So, and that is the point.
I get your point, and you're probably right on the operation side. My question is more, do you need to train the operator more? And then, I mean, we all know that we had that discussion about the silver wave in our industry, which means that it might not be that easy to find an operator and to train him. And then if he finds something better, he might move on and then so far and so on. And you also mentioned the guy here is really in charge of everything in the village. So I get why you would like to have an engineer in every plant, but that sounds really 90s to me. My question is, how is quality monitored here? Because that would be like the safeguard.
Quality is monitored as for each and every other drinking water plant. So they have the regulations 2 times a year. They have to take a sample, they send it to the lab, and the lab is saying, yeah.
So that's the point.
No.
So that's the point.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yet that's safety. But let's say 2 times of the year? Really? 2 times of the year?
That's the point. But if you does not the operator, the problem is 2 times in the year to watch if the result is good.
Yeah, but I mean that is a fair point. But shouldn't we let's say operate a plan 2023 in a way which is made for 2023 and not as we did it 50 years ago, even 50 years ago? Come on. I mean, the waterwork was not as nice as today. It was the same. We had just one operator who was responsible for everything here in this village, and he was also responsible.
Yeah,
but why he is never able to take all the new things we have, and I know where you're coming from smart metering, for instance, things like that, to implement that, because where should he get the knowledge from? And that is the point.
Yeah, but that
so
is not
there are
the-
two ways to solve that. Sorry to interrupt you.
Hashtag sorry not sorry.
Either you train these people and you have an engineer, I think, or you consolidate.
Okay,
What will be the other?
the two are wrong. First, you train the guy, okay?
Okay.
Now he's fully trained. Let's say you take the guy, you take him through engineering lessons, and really, he's a water engineer now. Can he decide to put smart monitoring everywhere?
He should.
Can he decide to?
He should.
He can't. He's not the one holding the budget. He's not the one taking that decision. So you train him.
Why not? Why not?
Because you've been in the water industry. Come on, Björn. You do know that you're a water engineer. I'm a water engineer. When you were operating a plant, did you decide on investing on the network? Not really. You might be proposing, and then the mayor was saying, yeah, but by the way, we could be doing a new playground for the children of the village. So we prefer doing that than working on something which so far is working.
So what's wrong? You're saying the mayor is wrong?
No, I'm just saying that training the guy doesn't solve the thing alone. And the other thing, consolidating, for what? For what would you consolidate?
Well, that did you
Perfect. This is perfect. You're a small village.
Consolidating that you have the knowledge here. That you have the knowledge. So that you
we
can
are
say,
back
okay,
to we are back to that discussion. It's not about consolidating, which I think you're misusing here. It's about distributed, which means the asset stays decentralized and small size and catered to the village. But maybe you want to share with the 3, 4, 5 neighbor village to have one engineer looking after these 5 different plants.
For us,
And then I'm with you. But if you say we should have one big plant and put a lot of pipes in between.
No.
By the way,
that's
perfect idea. I'm selling pipes and I love that idea.
That's
but
not what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I would love to have someone responsible. He know exactly everything about water and who can take a decision and who can ensure that the water I drink in the hotel this morning is 100% safe.
Okay.
That's all I want.
But that means the problem is different because you're starting with a fair point, which is to say 2 days of training to operate something which is on the life.
The most
of people
important
might be dangerous.
we are.
I get you. But the biggest thing isn't that people are trained, is that they get listened to.
Are you listening to anything I'm saying?
Let's imagine you have now an engineer looking at that plant and he says maybe the monitoring twice a year isn't the perfect solution, or maybe we have a problem with the backwashing which is not done exactly when it should, or I don't know.
Or we can save energy. We
What
can do other
happens?
things.
What's the next step? If he says, I propose to do better, will it be done better? I'm not sure.
Yeah, but
Because that guy doesn't have any power.
But then we are back to the discussion that we are saying, okay, it is all about the politicians. And the politician is looking just as in France, for instance, to the next election.
Cheap shots.
I know, but is that exactly the phase? I mean, you can invest now the money into the waterwork, or you can ensure that the quality is right, or you ensure that you get re-elected in the next 4 years.
It's not necessarily about the politicians. It's about the governance of water. If we have that principles of water pays for water, that means water should be independent. And I'm pretty sure here in Austria that water doesn't come for super cheap. Probably water covers its cost. So water should be decided with its budget by the people in charge of water, which understand water.
Yeah.
The problem is as soon as you have a master of everything, what's the saying? Knower of everything, master of none, something like that.
That's okay.
Almost right. Almost.
Let's say I quit my job.
I would not hire you.
I come
for
here
sure. No, I would.
and I start operating that plant. Will they listen more to me? No.
The point is not listen to you. The point is to have someone dedicated to ensure the water is always right. And we should put more effort into the education, into the quality of the person who's in charge of that. The same as we do for a driving license, the same as we do for my sailing example, but we don't do. And that is a misbalance.
That brings us back to a sales concept, which is something I learned the hard way. If you go to a customer or a lead and you start by saying, my solution is awesome, my solution is the best, and here's why my solution is the best. Advantage, 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 advantage. Will your customer buy?
Those are not.
Why not?
Because it's, not from the perspective from the customer.
Because you're not speaking about the problem.
Exactly.
And if you do the exact opposite and you say, that's the problem, that's the risk, here that could be the consequences, and this might happen, and this might happen, you don't even need to speak about your solution, they might buy. Where I'm heading with that is that driving license, everybody gets the risk. Everybody gets that if my 8-year-old daughter takes my car and goes on the street, it's gonna be a mess, and people will be at best injured, and if not, there will be some dead cats at least. You understand why you need a driving license. The problem is that we are here in one of the most developed countries in Europe. Probably nobody remembers that you might be opening your tap and not having good quality water. So what's the risk? It's working. Why would you disrupt something which is working?
Isn't exactly that the issue?
That's the issue.
So who should solve that? So I think we are a little bit back into a discussion I think we had some months ago.
You have two ways to solve that. The first is to wait for a disaster, and so everybody realizes that there's a disaster, and then we do something about it. Or,
This is the same as the flood management. We had also the discussion last summer,
yeah,
right? But let's say after a while, nobody's talking anymore. And let's say the money is not going to flood prevention, it's going to something more cool that I get re-elected. It's the same here.
I think-
nothing goes wrong as soon as the fire department has not go through the village to tell the people, hey, you have to boil your water.
but I think the problem isn't even money or decision making. It's even before that. The problem is data. This plant might be perfectly running, and there might be absolutely nothing which you could be doing better than what they do. But I would suggest that most probably we don't know. And if you were starting by collecting the data, then you would know if maybe that plant doesn't need to be touched for 10 years. So then you don't need to invest and you're saving money, but at least you know why you're saving money. You need to start by collecting information. And that's the step which most of the time we're missing.
Okay, so I think we have a lot of issues here, right? Collecting data, training the people, having the engineers.
But even
having
before training the people, even all of that, maybe this is perfectly working. Most probably this is perfectly working.
Okay, take the example. Even if you gather all the information, all the data, and you know exactly each activated carbon piece, how it works and how is it saturated or not. Who is talking? Who is taking the information and is taking the decision for the next level? Must be someone with more than a 2-day training, right?
Yes and no. We are back to a discussion we had, I think, in November last year, because
What was the discussion there?
on one end, you could be having a value for BOD, a value for total coliform, a value for suspended solids, or you could be having like a green light. Red, stop it. Orange, take attention. Green, all fine. And then you don't even need 2 days of training.
Yeah, but then I don't need an engineering course.
Yeah.
So then even you can operate it.
Yeah. Oh, low blow.
Come on, that was easy.
You see what I mean?
But that is more for the consumer.
No, it could be here as well. It takes me back, to my engineering school. When I was in engineering school, we were told some stuff like very theoretic. How do you do an hydraulic calculation? How do you do a pipe calculation? And we were even told how to draw with a pencil and a white sheet of paper, which you would argue you don't need. And our teachers were telling us, you will not need that. But we are still teaching it to you because there will be softwares to help you. There will be a lot of stuff to help you. But you need to understand
Exactly.
just in case.
Exactly.
And
And
so-
can the 2-day two-day operator can he
2-day
understand
cannot
everything?
understand.
If the EPC who built everything here, if the supplier, the tech supplier who has equipped something here is coming to you and is talking on a level saying, you need this, you need that, we need to do this, we need to do that. Can he understand everything and can he take the decision? I mean, he has to take that and he has to go to the mayor and say, well, that's what the guy want to do. And this is the budget I need. Let's do it. And then the mayor, I don't understand that, I don't invest that. Isn't that exactly the issue we have, especially here in mainland Europe, where we have these thousands of waterworks, especially the small works?
I would say it's the opposite. It's you have people which are on the ground and which know what they have to know on the ground. And you don't need to overload them with information which doesn't bring them much.
Don't want to overload them, but on the one hand, you're saying we need to gather all the information, and that is a critical issue. But if you have all the information, you need someone who understands.
Yeah. On a distributed level, you will never have an engineer operating a plant for 600 people.
Fully agree. But
Okay.
we should give him more than just a 2-day training, because this is the most important elixir we all need. I think we can agree on that.
Not really, but
You are saying this is not the most important elixir in the world. Have you heard this? Unbelievable, isn't it?
no, I agree that water is important and you know exactly what I mean. I don't agree that we can agree that we need more than 2 days of training. 2 days of training can be fine and 2 years of training can be fine. It's a matter of how do you incentivize the people working in such a plant to do the right thing. And
How's he incentivized? Come on, he's incentivized in the way, hey, nothing can go wrong. Ensure that water is all fine, that the water work, that we don't spend any money on that.
I think
that's the incentive.
that's not the best incentive.
But it is exactly.
The best incentive is most probably he's living in that village. Most probably he takes care of the fact that he receives good water, his neighbors receive good water, and that is
Nobody's
much
finger
stronger
pointing
than-
to him.
And that is much better than any kind of training because that means what you're doing in your job has a meaning. And that is true for all of us. When what you do has a meaning, you do it much better. And that is the connection you have when you have such a distributed asset. when that plant is producing water for the people around. It's not something which is in the middle of a city and distributing water for 2 million people. And then it's, yeah, someone might be ill. Like I care, I will never meet that person.
Yeah.
But here, this village is taking care of this village. And they should get some support from data. And that can come for cheap and very easily. So it's about tapping into that. It's not about training the people.
What I would love to see is that we have at least this operator, and then we have a kind of organization above that who is supporting them, who's helping them in a way that he can do his job in the best way, and that he can take all the information and say, Mayor, listen, 1, 2, 3, third. But these are the items we have to take action on.
Mr. Björn, who believes in governments, isn't that the role of governments?
I don't know whether this is the role of governments. Someone has to take the decision. I'm not sure. I can't.
Interesting.
I don't-
I'm starting to convert you on my side, which is don't await everything from the governments. You see, every month you get closer to the truth. You see the light?
Okay, but I think
Walk towards the light.
But I think we agree that is the most important elixir, and at least we should, treat it in a way that it is the most important elixir.
Okay, we agree on the overall idea. We don't agree on the way to do it. But I think when it comes to governments and how they deal with that, I have much worse examples which will take you further to the light. And that is my top 3 for today. Do we switch to that?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, let's go to the top 3. For my top 3, I'm coming a bit back in time. We are now in June, we had some time to digest, but a couple of months ago we had the UN Water Conference. And during the UN Water Conference, there were a lot of speeches. I would say 90% of them were pretty lame, 5% were really good, and 5% were really ugly. My top 3 today is 3 specific moments where I thought, that is really on the edge. It might be really good and really ugly, maybe at the same time. I will give you them ranked from my 3 to 1. Sometimes I made a compilation of several which come together, and I'd like to discuss them with you.
Okay.
And my first one is this one.
We all know that tourism depends on a healthy planet and on clean and reliable water. Indeed, water is essential to almost all tourism activities. Water is part of the beautiful ecosystems that are often the main tourism attractions. Water also enters in production and consumption, being used by tourism industry to provide services like accommodation, food and gastronomy, cultural activities, wellness and sporting opportunities, transport and retail.
So that was the 5-minute speech of the UN Tourism Organism, which was then invited. So you had all the countries speaking one by one, and then you had UN Tourism. I was watching that middle of the night, and I was shocked, like really shocked, because you're at the UN Water Conference, which is all about how do we bring back SDG 6 on track? How do we bring back 2.2 billion people that don't have access to safe drinking water? How do you solve for the 4 billion people which don't have access to safe sanitation? And they come and say, you know what? Water is very important for tourism because, tourists, they want water because if they don't have water, then they don't come and they don't spend their money. So we want them to spend their money. And you know what? What she says makes sense.
No, makes no sense.
Why do you come and tell that at that stage? Come on, that was so... I was like, am I even witnessing that?
You know, what my first thought was? We're here in beautiful Austria. If I look around, I see mountains. So the beautiness of Austria is going for hiking, going into the mountains. It's not going for looking for the next ocean. Because this one is saying, hey, they're all coming to want to see the sea. But here's the sea.
It's not only that. She's also saying, if you go to the hotel, you want to have a good shower, you want to drink a good glass of water. Yeah, guess who wants to have a good shower and a good glass of water? The 2.2 billion people that don't have access and the 4 billion people which don't have access to sanitation. How can you come to that conference and say, guys, you should be doing something for water, because if not, we don't make money with tourism. A UN organism which comes to the UN conference and says that, I was like shocked.
I feel that you are very in a mood, that you are very against that idea.
Yeah. To be honest, I was like, at first, and that's why when I did my summaries, I didn't even include it, because I was like, I put that in the energy of the moment, I'm going to be nasty.
Who to blame for? Is it the UN conference? Is it the person who's speaking? Is it the tourism organization? Who to blame for?
Very good
I mean,
question.
that this person can go on stage where we want to solve the problem for the 2.2 billion, and this person is talking about tourism and that we need all the good shower.
I would see that at 2 levels. The first level is the casting they did to come and make these allocutions. All the countries came, and then aside from all the countries, they had some additional guests.
Yeah.
Why would you take UN tourism as an additional guest? Just if you want to take a UN organization, there are 40 agencies within the United Nations which have a mandate for water, which you can argue is far too much. Yeah, but then pick one of the 40 and not UN tourism to come and make a speech. So that was the first people I would blame, is the person lead the agenda and put that person on stage.
But sometimes it is like, you know, you have an agenda and then you see, okay, you have a gap. Who can fill the gap?
Whoever would be from the water industry. There was no single person from the water industry on that stage. If you wanted to have someone,
That will be my next question. I mean, you was monitoring that. How many people really from the industry? I mean, I have seen a lot of companies I never would have expected to be in New York at this time, but I have seen them. So some months ago, I said, hey, we don't take that really serious from the industry perspective. And I have seen Veolia, I have seen so many companies really being there.
Yeah, they were there,
So that was
but in the side event.
That was cool. They're all part of the side event. So no one could get to the main stage.
They were in the side events or in the side events of the side events, because you had side events within the UN building, side events from the UN outside of the buildings, and then side events organized by others because everybody was there. And actually, I'm told by the people who were in New York that the best place to be was not in the main building, not in the side events from the UN, but in the side events, which is a pity, come on. And then everybody's like, hey, first time in 46 years. But it's very clear why it was the first time in 46 years. Who wants that shit? But that's a different topic.
You're very disappointed.
I'm very disappointed. I had low expectations, and they disappointed my low expectations. So that's pretty strong.
Okay.
But, so that was my first, which is blame the people who does the casting. But the second, who to blame for, I think the UN has not understood how important that topic is.
But if the UN has not understood, then nobody.
No, I would say some have understood, but not on that level of the UN and the countries. And to me, the reason for that was every time you had a UN person on stage, maybe regardless of the stage, I have
a solution for that. We need an envoy. We need an envoy.
Oh, come on. So if you missed that
my application, let me know where to send it to.
Every country came on stage and said, we need a special envoy for water. There was a special envoy for water from 2013 to 2018. We didn't even know there was one, and it was totally inefficient. So why do we need that? But to stay on my line of thought, this UN off topic, before even the start of the conference, there was an interview by the head of communication of the United Nations, which was interviewing Matt Damon and Gary White, so the founders of water.org. And of course, the star power of Matt Damon, that was the reason. But it was clear she had not even read their book, not even. She was asking, what do we do about the millions of people who don't have access to water? And that's true, there are millions of people, but you could also see the dozens, because there are also dozens which don't have access to water. But the real number, if you want to be realistic, is billions of people. So you don't say, what do we do about millions of people? You're wrong by a 1,000. Yeah, you're wrong from a 1,000 factor. And you could see it in the eyes of Matt Damon and Gary White. They were like, seriously? Did you seriously raise these lame questions? Because we have good answers, and we proved that our system works. So, okay.
But isn't that exactly the proof that we shouldn't have another one?
Oh, that's definitely the proof. We should never have another one. And if there's another one, be sure I don't cover it. That for sure.
No, maybe it's just the wrong organization to handle that. I mean, it's the most powerful.
And you're giving me...
It's the most powerful, but maybe it's just still the one.
You're giving me a very smooth transition, because that would be what we discuss in my number one. But before my number one, there's my number two. And here's number two.
Where the private sector is involved, as an investor or service provider, there must be strong guarantees that water and sanitation are treated as public goods and not mere commodities to be sold to the highest possible price.
We know the private sector is a major source of innovation and key to implement and upscale solutions to overcome water stress and preserve the environment. Water efficiency does not only make good environmental sense, but also great business sense. By adopting resource-efficient approaches, industries typically achieve internal rates of return of 25% and above. They see cost reductions, reduce water consumption, and lower pollution loads.
Our constituency is ready to act now for people, for planet, with the government, and we need a municipal approach that entails remunicipalization of the governance of water.
So this time we've seen 3 extracts.
We should invite these people to the water show. Exactly.
And yeah, that would be a good discussion to have. If you remember, my number 3 was clearly to me lame. Yeah. You'll see that my number 1 is going to be lame as well. This one is on the edge. because it goes against my beliefs when explaining that we should go for remunicipalization, that you should avoid that the private sector has too high stakes. But I can listen to it because it comes with good arguments. And I think the points that UN Industrial, which was a good speech by the UN, so not only bad stuff comes from the UN, what they were saying that there is an interest from the private sector and from the industry to look after their own water consumption, so their handprint and their footprint. That's interesting. But I think that is typically the debate that was scratched at the UN Water Conference, and nobody really digged into it. What is the role of the private sector? What is the role of the public sector?
That's exactly what we discussed this a couple of times. We had the UK example, where we have the 13, utilities which serve the entire country. And we have the example here in mainland Europe, for instance, in Germany, where we have 10,000, or in Switzerland, where we have a couple of thousand for this low amount of people. Which approach is the better one? Yes, we discussed, yes, there is maybe no black and white, and that is the same discussion. Is it more the industry? The industry, from my personal feeling, is always striving for the better. That they get money out of that, I mean, that's by nature fair. And that's okay. And they should get money out of that. And the municipality, well, they don't strive really for the next innovation. Think about that. We discussed in my editorial. We have the person who is responsible for this water work with a 2-day training course. So how can he drive really the energy consumption down, the chemical consumption down, and all these things maybe we need? How can this be balanced? I mean, it's a fair question, I think.
What was interesting to see was that there was a strong discrepancy from country to country. For instance, when you had Venezuela doing their statement, it was very clear. Everything has to be public.
Yeah.
And then when you had the US doing their statement, it was very clear. Everything has to be private. So it was interesting to see different approaches. What got me frustrated a little bit is that I had the impressions that they were finally on the topic, which was worth digging into it.
Oh, yeah.
But they just scratched it because it wasn't the place to go into it. So if there was a sequel to that conference, don't do it again with statements from all the countries. Do it with a deep dive into the topics where we say, look, municipalization has its perks, privatization has its perks. Maybe we shouldn't be on the dogma and we should find the right in between.
Now you will blame me again.
Sure.
But maybe there is not one solution for each and every country. Maybe we have to look for this country in particular and for this country in particular, and this works there better and this works there better because of, their system.
And you will never believe what I tell you. He doesn't know my top 3, so he doesn't know my number 1, but that's the smoothest of all transitions.
Correct.
Because the number 1 is this one.
We have to treat water and the global water cycle in particular as a global common good, to be protected collectively and in the interests of all.
So clearly, that was one of the outcomes of the conference. Like, there is one water, and we have to treat it as an entire world, as one water. If you've been working with water a little bit in your life, you know that that is absolutely wrong. Like, absolutely wrong. If I'm water rich and someone at the other end of the world is water poor, I cannot put my water in a big pipe and ship it there. It doesn't work. And if I take a global decision covering everything, it will never work. You can go watershed by watershed, you can go sub-watershed by sub-watershed, but globally thinking, as you were saying, it has at least to be country specific, and even country specific is still too broad. So it's nice, you're on the UN scene and you say, we are all together and we shall treat water as one. But that is nonsense.
I have a solution. We have just one waterwork somewhere, and then we have just the pipes, or from GS, piping systems.
A centralized...
And we just distribute that to all the places, and then the problem is solved.
A centralized 8 billion population equivalent waterwork, that would be great. No, but seriously, I was ashamed of that being one of the main conclusions. Like one water. And I see the idea, because it's like when you say one humanity, that is very right. We are one humanity and we should behave as one humanity, and we don't always do.
Okay.
But on the level of water, it is a nonsense.
There was a conference. There was a clear topic. What is the solution? How are we going to solve the 2.2 billion problem? I mean, after 3 days, we spent thousands of euros, thousands of CO2 footprint, thousands of hours. So what is the problem? How can we solve that?
The interesting thing...
Because he was watching, because I'm pretty sure there is a solution right now.
First,
and he will give us a solution.
You do know there is no solution. Clearly there's no solution. Number 2, it's...
Really?
even when we speak with people which found that conference great, because there are some who found that great, so I spoke with them and maybe I'm stupid and I didn't understand it.
Because there are people which just go to conference just in the purpose of being on a conference.
They were brilliant people who found the conference
Coffee is
great.
good, cake eating, and
I discussed with them and I said, do you believe that we will achieve SDG 6 by 2030? I had not finished my question that they already said no. So that conference was about how do we achieve SDG 6 by 2030? And even the people who found it great, they end up saying, no chance.
maybe it's just too late.
Yeah, and my sequel question to those people is, will we achieve it by 2050? And they're like, it's like, how can it be a good conference when its main purpose is not met and when even a reserve date is not met? And that brings me to my conclusion, because I don't want this top 3 to be too long because I can brag about that conference for a while. I have a bonus sequence which tells a lot about the way the UN has seen that, and here's the bonus.
Excellencies, I hold the start button here in my hand. Can I push this button on your behalf and that of the member state? Do I have your support?
So he pressed the button.
That is the closing statement. That guy is the president of the Assembly of the United Nations. Last weekend, I was at home with my wife and some friends, and we made a time's up. And we had these buzzers, and we're like buzzing and using it because it was a game between 8 people. And that guy is on the stage of all stages, and he's like, we are gonna change the world because I pressed that button which I bought on Amazon or AliExpress for $8. And that is just one of the examples of the lame shame scenography they made at the United Nations. They made an opening ceremony with 10 items on 10 spots, and then you had children bringing stuff together. That stuff was half an hour late, lasted 3 minutes, and then they were like, oh, that's done. Let's dismantle everything, children go home, and let's start with the good old statements. Every single step where they could have given the sense of, this is a watershed moment.
Okay.
This is the moment it happens. Every single step, they missed it.
Okay, I get your point. I get fully your point. But you said clearly in the beginning that there were the main stage, then there were a side stage from the UN conference, and you had a lot of side events somewhere out there. Maybe and hopefully on these kind of side events where even our industry was, participating, there we find a way to solve at least a couple of problems for the world.
This last extract is
because we don't know what happened really there, because there were so many.
This last extract is the closing. At that moment, all the side events were closed.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody was coming back to that plenary. How do you know it? You hear applauses, because all the rest of the time, you had the country on stage doing their speech, and the country next, which was waiting to go on stage to do their speech, and it was empty, like nobody in the room. Nobody.
But maybe it was good because they were all to the side events and they discussed really the matters.
Now you bring everybody together and you're like, wow, I push a time's up button. And then if you look at the coverage you have of that, you see this moment was covered and everybody's saying it's great. And the other thing which was covered is the president of the United Nations holding the agenda with all the commitments of the people, which at the time they did that, there were 789. Now there are more. If you want to waste your time, go dig into it. You'll see there's just blah, blah, and nothing concrete. So my conclusion to the top 3 was 46 years without that conference. We had a special World Water Day show together where I said,
must be the last one.
Must be the last one. Clearly, there will be World Water Days for the coming decades and 20 and 30 years. If we await from these people to solve that issue, it will never happen. And this was the truth of their disconnection from the realities out there, of their misunderstanding of the problem, let alone their incapacity to come with solutions.
But then we have clear to say the message, sorry, 2.2 billion people, we haven't found the solution.
We have found the solution. We have found the solution. Water.org has the solution. All the water industry has the solution. We all have the solution. It's not that much. We have to invest a little bit of money. Let's do it. But don't count on the countries to do it. They won't do it.
Cool.
And that being said, I know it might be a bit aggressive. It's my gut feeling. So if you disagree, feel free to come in the comments and to tell me how wrong I am. I'm really looking forward to have that discussion. But let's switch to the deep dive.
Water is the basis of all life. Depending on the use, a certain water quality is required. That is why it is essential to measure it. There are 3 dimensions to water quality: a physical, a chemical, and a microbiological dimension. Currently, there are only sensors to measure the physical and the chemical dimension. Therefore, only these can be used for process control. But process control is crucial to ensure the quality, efficiency, and safety of any process. Because there are no sensors for microbiological quality, this quality is unknown, although it affects health within minutes. It is still tested using traditional methods that take days to deliver a result and are unsuitable for process control. Because of this, all water-related applications are carried out in 2D, as only physical and chemical dimensions of water quality are available for process control. In order to meet quality standards for the microbiological dimension, oversized processes and overdosing disinfectants are necessary. This affects all water treatment processes from drinking water to wastewater. If process feedback is missing, a process cannot be controlled and therefore is not efficient, not sustainable, and not safe. The shift from 2D to 3D process control requires fully automated, rapid microbiological methods in order to provide the microbiological dimension of water quality for process feedback, process control, and early warning.
Now it's time for a special topic for this deep dive, and a topic which was special enough for us to get one guest. Björn, can you introduce our guest?
Yeah, today we have Wolfgang Vogel from Vienna Water Monitoring Solution here with us. Welcome, Wolfgang, better known as the ColdMiner product. Maybe you have heard this a little bit, because today we want to talk about online bacteria measurement. That's what we are going to talk today about. And I have to admit, as I came the first time to that topic, it reminds me a little bit to my times after university. I was writing my diploma, because you know what you would say ages ago, but be careful, we have Wolfgang here today.
You do the jokes yourself today. That's great.
The point was, at this time, I was in a waterwork like this one here, right? And there was an old UV disinfection system, and we wanted to replace that. And we said, hey, we can take a UF membrane, which works as well. It can disinfect. We all know 99%, 99, whatever, depends on the membrane element. But there was one authority who had clearly denied every solution we came up with, and they said clearly, you have to have a UV. And there was the water authorities who said clearly no. And I think we have here a little bit the same situation, because we have to send the water, depends a little bit on how big the water work is, to a lab. On the other hand, Wolfgang, you can monitor all the bacteria every 15 minutes. So isn't there a discrepancy at the moment?
It's like always, a new technology needs some time to be adopted. And of course, people in water business are busy, as you know. They are busy with their work they do in every day. There is not much space reserved for picking up new technologies. And at the same time, it's a very important topic. So,
but who's who let
the dogs out?
Who's a little bit the party pooper? Is it really the authorities, or is it the operator with a 2 days training who is saying, well, I have no clue about that, I will stick to the lab solution? Who's the party pooper here?
The fact that the drinking water is such an important topic, people take care about the quality. They don't change things easily. That's understandable. It just takes some time. And especially if it's about biological contamination, they tend to stick with what they do up to now. And that's also what's given in the regulations. They need to do it anyway. But if they get our technology in addition to that, and then they learn. As soon as they get a real-time feedback on what's going on within their processes, and they automatically learn. They can't refuse to learn. It's just by looking what's there. I always use that example with the car. If you have a car with a black windshield and only a back mirror, you see, when you're driving, you see what you hit yesterday or day before yesterday. That's because the lab results take a day. At least.
Let's take a step back.
Yeah.
What's the problem we try to solve here? What is really this thing which keeps operators up at night, which we might be able to solve with online monitoring.
If you think about water quality, it's 3 dimensions to it. There's a physical dimension, a chemical, and a microbiologic dimension. A physical and chemical, there are a lot of sensors, and they're installed everywhere you see them. Concerning microbiology, the system runs without feedback and without control. That's the topic. You have big treatment systems running without process feedback in the dimension of microbial quality. That's the fact.
I give you an example. Over the last 10 years, it happened to me twice that the fire departments drove through our village where I live with a loudspeaker saying, "Hey, people, listen to us. You have to boil your water because it's contaminated.
Sir, there's something in the water.
We have an issue. We have a serious issue. We will solve that. But today, we have to boil. And tomorrow again, and maybe the day after, we will inform you if that is solved." That happens, really. And I'm living in Germany. I'm not living in the, somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I say. You're living in Germany. That's the reason why. But
that exactly happens, right?
How did they know that water was of bad quality?
Well, in principle, if I understand that right, depends on the regulation, how big you are. For instance, this waterwork here has to monitor twice a year bacteria.
Okay, so
they take a sample and send it to the lab.
So what you're telling me is that regulation is saying that every 6 months is fine, and you're trying to sell me the point that every 15 minutes shall be much better.
Yeah.
Why would I take that step? I'm so in a peaceful position with my every 6 months.
Of course, in a waterwork like here, it's hard to sell a collimator to them if there's not an additional benefit. For instance, one benefit would be you have an activated carbon filter here. After activated carbon, the law in Austria requires UV because there might be some bacteria building up in the activated carbon, and then you need a UV, and as it takes too long to get the lab results, if there is contamination, so there's a preventive need to use UV. That's the law. If we would try to get the thing more efficient and more maybe sustainable, only use disinfection if required, we could have a collimator here monitoring the outcome of the filter quality, and if there is contamination, then we add the disinfection.
If you are free from regulation, everybody has to be responsible for the water quality, but then you're free to achieve it however you like. An alternative to the system today where you have activated carbon, UV, and testing twice a year would be activated carbon, testing continuously, and as soon as you detect that you need disinfection, you switch the UV lamp and
that would be one use case.
Makes sense. But what's the magic? Why are you able to measure something every 15 minutes if the standard method takes 1 day in a Petri dish?
3 days. Come on, it takes 3 days. Well, I mean, you have to take a sample. You have to transport it. You have to work on that.
Yeah.
It takes incubation time. It takes
1 to 3 days. This okay.
Yeah, it's an important thing. It's about life. So the goal is there are bacteria. They are too small. You can't see them. So you need to make them visible somehow, and that's what this traditional method does. It uses the fact that they proliferate, put it into ideal conditions, and wait until they multiply to a number or they become visible. That's the standard method. And then there is an agreement. Okay, we take this agar, and then after 24 hours we count. That's an agreement. If they would count after 36 hours, it would be also comparable results, but 24 hours seems to be the minimum to get reliable, reproducible.
That's a traditional way.
That's a traditional way. You told me that we have to gather the information some minutes ago during my editorial. You said we have to gather all the information.
I'm just
here we get information with the collimator. We know exactly the amount.
Wait. My question is by which magic?
The traditional uses the fact that proliferation makes it visible, and what we do in the collimator, what the collimator measurement approaches is an enzyme assay. Enzymes are the catalysts of every metabolic activity. We need them because our metabolism needs enzymes to catalyze this process and to feed us with energy. And the same happens for all other living creatures or organisms, plants and algae and yeast and mold and bacteria, and everybody who is alive needs to have to get energy and therefore have a metabolic activity. And there are always enzymes involved, and we measure enzymes. The collimator is measured with enzyme concentration or enzymatic activity. And that's a direct reflection of the energetic turnover of this life.
So you use these enzymes as a proxy to evaluate the bacterial presence.
Yeah. If you break it down to very simple, you could say we measure the energetic turnover of our target organisms.
So that means you start up and you probably have to calibrate. So you take like the traditional approach and you put your numbers next to the traditional approach, and then you can from there on extrapolate.
As the perspective is different, the culture-based approach has a different view on bacteria, as our approach, the energetic or enzymatic approach, is a different view. And always, if you have two different views, we need to match because they see things a little bit different. And therefore, if we have a waterworks like this, we would recommend the customer to do parallel testing for a while in order to get the match. But basically, the enzymatic activity is a scientifically defined value. In contrary to the standard CFU things, enzymatic activity is scientifically defined. So you could set a maximum level of enzymatic activity for drinking water, E. coli specific beta-glucuronidase, for instance.
Bingo! Good.
And it would be the same around the globe, and it could be measured with whatever method because it's scientifically defined. That's a great advantage.
You say we could, so that means that today in the rules there is no
rule for it.
Okay, so the rule doesn't exist, but it could exist, and if it existed, you wouldn't be the only ones to be able to measure. There would be other ways to measure, so it's not like something which would be binding to your coliminder. It's something which would be really open.
Exactly. It's an approach. The enzymatic measurement approach is an approach. It's used, for instance, there are some standards like ISO standard for pasteurization of milk. They are based on alkaline phosphatase activity. So there is a standard that's used in the standard to measure the pasteurization efficiency of milk products.
Isn't that we discussed that. We discussed that the operator here has a 2-day training, more or less, right? What we discussed right now sounds really scientific. How can we help the operator really that he understand that? He get a lot of data. How can we ensure with a 2-day training that it helps him? I think, isn't that the barrier we have to break through? That people with the 2-day training, that they understand that we can make their life easier? Isn't that really the approach with each and every technology we bring to the market?
Sure. It helps only if you're able to influence something. If you're not able to influence something, if you're just monitoring your waterwork and you have nothing at hand to influence anything in there, it's only an alarm. That might also be helpful because then they don't have to drive around the village and asking everybody to boil the water because they know in advance that something's going wrong. So then it would be only for a while, and then they would get specialists in to solve the problem. But if the people in the waterworks, if it's in a point of the waterworks where they really influence the process and maybe take decisions, what flocculation agent, what intensity, what
chemical dosage. Think about chemical dosage. How you can reduce this consumption.
When to backwash.
Yeah, exactly.
When to
energy. Energy.
You can monitor after the filter. As soon as you see, okay, now it's going up, then you can do a few tests, and after a few times, okay, at that level of enzymatic activity after the filter is the best way. We should stop here and backwash, and then proceed with our treatment.
Actually, it goes along what we were discussing in your editorial, which is you have a source of data which gives you a new view on your system, which you could feed into machine learning, for instance, to use some buzzwords. And then you don't care if the operator is trained for 2 days. He's not the one operating. The machine is operating. He's just watching that the machine does right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So my question is, we are here in a drinking water treatment plant, and it makes sense we discuss municipal because we're into the municipality, but the municipality is really limited by regulations. If someone was to now measure the enzymatic activity, they would still have to do the old-fashioned way, and they would still have to use UV all the time. So the added value to them is limited as long as law doesn't allow you to bring more added value. But there's a green field which uses twice more water in the world, which is twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times more under pressure when it comes to water, and that's the industrial sector. And there, I guess, you don't have a regulation which tells industrial people when they're inside the facility that if they're using activated carbon, they have to put UV. They have to be efficient, and it's only for the process.
Yeah.
So that's the Eldorado for you.
Yeah, that's the ideal customer. The ideal customer is the customer that produces water or even circular economy, reuse water, reuse even more for its own purposes, because then the quality is really the focus and the efficiency is really the focus, and there's no regulator needed because they want to use it themselves and they need to have it in a good quality and safe, and they don't want to spoil their production of whatever they produce. So they want to have a good quality and they are looking after it and take every bit of information to guarantee that. And that's the best customer. You absolutely right.
Can you have some KPIs on that? Like you have an example of, I don't know, in dairy, I don't know actually what would be the best industry for you, where you can say, thanks to the installation of an enzymatic measurement, they were able to reduce the usage of that chemical by so and so much, or reduce their energy needs because they could shut down the disinfection when it wasn't needed. Do you have these kind of figures?
Not yet really full-scale operational systems where you can say, okay, that was it before, and then they implemented the Coliminder, and then it gets that much better.
It's obvious.
This is what it is.
It is obvious that you say that you save a lot of chemicals, that you save a lot of energy for the backwash. You can save also the energy for all the pumps to control the pumps, because even the pumps, they have an influence on the biological growth and things like that. So it is obvious.
You say not yet. We have in our set since the beginning of the show, maybe you noticed, we have a Coliminder in the background. How much of that is a prototype? How much is a finalized product? And how do you roll it out?
It is not a prototype anymore.
Okay.
The core unit for the measurement system itself is stayed the same since is more than 10 years. So it's really, its robustness and its quality is proven. What we have at the moment is this system which is used from ultra pure water until very heavy contaminated wastewater. So the same machine. We diversified in terms of target organisms because the enzymatic approach allows to measure specific organisms. Very important. We can stick with the indicator organism concept. That's the most important thing. So we have diversified concerning target organisms, but not concerning machines. That is the next steps. We are actually working on a model specifically designed for ultra pure water, because that's a very interesting topic. There's a lot of interest from the industries, pharmaceutical, but also even more clean water. We improve, let's say, or adopt the concept to the specific needs of specific applications.
I mean, I'm coming from the point, I saw this the first time and I was thinking, damn, I'm a membrane guy. And the biggest issue we have with membrane is what? Fouling. So, and fouling is exactly what we can not prevent, but what we can measure.
Sure.
And then, if we can measure this in an exactly and specific way, we can prevent longer lifetime, OPEX reduction, and say all of this. And I was thinking, thank God. I mean, that is the industry was waiting for, right?
I have a big problem with the silver bullets. You lost me at we can cover from ultra pure to wastewater. Now, if you can pick one field, which is the one where you add the most value today, which one is it?
I'd say drinking water upwards. Drinking water, pharmaceutical, ultra pure, because the product is the most expensive there.
Yeah,
the value,
it's the highest value. Yeah,
the value per liter, and that's of course always the decisioning parameter is what is the value of what we save with this, or efficiency we increase and the output the product. How valuable is it? That's
So when you were in the ultra pure environment, are you in the ultra pure water loop, or are you in the makeup part of the water?
All parts. Of course, you have to start, and the better you start, the less energy you need until you are at the level of pureness that you want. And of course, starting with the good first step is the best way to start.
The reason why I'm asking is that if you're in the ultra pure water loop, which targets stuff in the parts per million, parts per billion, parts per quadrillion sometimes, if you want to measure that, you have to go for GCMS, LCMS, which is, again, offline machinery done in the lab, costs $500,000 one piece. So if you can bring a solution to complement, supplement, even replace that, then you have an incredible value proposition. Is that what you're aiming for?
That's at least something that seems to be feasible and where we're working on. So we have a very good technology, which we know very good. And as in every technology, if you know what limits your quality, then you are able to develop. Only if you know the point that limits your quality at the moment, and then you can take it from there and can improve that. And then you always have to be fully aware about your technology and what are the limiting factors, what are the possibilities, where's the chance to go, where's the chance to improve. And that's what we are constantly doing.
A little bit back, I mean, we have the regulation which is saying, well, we have to measure every 6 months, and you are doing every 15 minutes. But there are other, suppliers who can do this in hours, in minutes, in seconds. So what is the right amount here to measure this? I mean, how many data we really need? Isn't that enough? Let's say twice a year to every 15 minutes, or do we need it really data every minute, every second, every hour? What is it? I mean, aren't we a little bit overwhelming the operator again?
Let me just answer, because that's the type of questions I'm raising on my podcast where I get this answer, which is, it depends. No, the real answer.
No, yeah. It depends on the dynamics of the system. What we recommend to our customers, for instance, you install a Coliminder and then you'll have it run on full speed for 1 week to evaluate the dynamics of your process. And from that point, you get a timeline like this, and then you can decide and say, okay, I want to capture at least these peaks. So in order to capture them, in case they occur, we need that frequency. So you evaluate doing a high-speed measurement, you evaluate the dynamics, and then you take the decision. It's always cost against benefit. And then you take the decision, okay, it's okay for me to measure once per hour, or I need to measure 30 minutes, or maybe it's a slow system and once every 2 hours would be okay as well, because I can capture everything that might happen in the process.
Let me ask also a kind of podcast question from your podcast. I mean, you are now since 2016 in the market.
16, yeah.
16. So that means 7 years if I'm good at math. So what is the biggest and coolest project you have with the Coliminder? I mean, I know that you are more or less everywhere in the world. So we are here in this little Austria, in a very little town, and we have here a company who is deployed all over the world, more or less.
Well, you pick the one you want to answer to him. Let me crack a secret. We have Isabel running around, going through the cameras, taking some pictures. And I heard when she brought us to here, I heard the words of Haute-Paris, I heard Hong Kong, I heard many places. So looking forward if there's something even cooler than what we already heard. Didn't want to influence you, but...
Don't be shy.
The coolest projects are those, I think, where we learn the most. And this was, for instance, a project done by the Water Group in Belgium, where they put different technology in parallel in a water distribution hub and have them measure the same sum. That was really a cool project.
One-to-one comparison between different technologies.
Yeah, they put the different technologies for rapid microbiological measurements, they put it next to each other and have them measure the same sample. In order, the question of this scientific study was, how do microbial water quality measurement systems and how do they respond to contamination in practice? That is a really cool thing, because we also learn, we don't know, we don't have the other technologies in our lab to compare or to learn. And I'm sure that every approach has its advantage and every approach has its shortcomings and limitation. As soon as you know that, you can compose a process where you use every technology and every part according to its strengths. And if there is a weakness, you might find something that...
So it helped you to improve also the Coliminder?
It's improved.
He's scientific. He's clearly scientific. So I'm pretty sure if we would ask Isabel, she would say, hey, maybe Hong Kong or maybe the other project. Wolfgang is one of the guys who always wants to improve the technology.
Not only our technology. It's the same applies, of course, for every process. If you do a water treatment for the city of Hong Kong, for instance, and you get the watering from here, and then you need certain steps to achieve the quality you require, then it's good to know the strength and the shortcomings and the limitations of the process steps you have, because the most efficient way to produce the best quality is the best way to do it. So you need to know, and then you combine technology that fits everything so that you don't have any risky unknowns.
I have a question on that. My question is the following: when you mentioned this comparison done by the Water Group, what I hear is that you're not alone in that market. And that is usually excellent news, because that means there's a market. If you're alone, yeah, it's great to be alone in the desert.
Or you found the blue ocean. Come on.
You don't want to restart that conversation, Björn. Not again. We had that conversation.
Blue ocean, red ocean, and we should have it again because I will convince you about the blue ocean.
If there's no product, there's no market. So, and then you have to build up the market anyway, and they help us. All the competitors help us building the market.
Exactly. How do you go with those competitors? Is it like you convince together, for instance, regulators that they should allow your approach, or are you really fighting against each other?
I wouldn't see it as a fight. There is definitely competition, and everybody wants to get into specific applications. And of course, everybody tries to improve the technology and to prove that the technology works for certain applications. It's an application by application race. I'm convinced that one of the main advantages of our technology is that we are able to measure specific organisms. And there's always this buzz about pathogens. Everybody wants pathogens, and we are measuring pathogens. And in fact, most of technologies don't measure pathogens. They measure indicators. And that's a good concept. That's a very wise concept. We can't measure 27 pathogens, having one machine for every pathogen, and then you run more.
And maybe that's you coming.
Through the pathogen measurement devices, then you supply to your customer. Doesn't make sense. So this indicator organism concept is extremely important. And this is why I'm so fascinated with our technology, because we can stick with the indicator organ. We can measure E. coli as fecal indicator. And that's great, because this is the main hazard for cities or for agglomerations of people. If this is not separated, the wastewater and the drinking water, then you get epidemics and people die.
I have a final question for both of you. I mean, I started with my example from 15 years back with regulation, UV and UF and things like that. When do you think such online monitoring will be implemented as a kind of standard compared to lab test? When do you think will this happen?
To me, we have to go...
Mystical ball. You haven't call that.
You have to go one step higher. If you want that to become the norm, you need to have the ability to tap into the entire set of benefits. If you go to an approach where you have clever systems, like smart systems, which are almost operating themselves. I use the buzzwords and I hate the buzzwords. I don't like to speak about machine learning, artificial intelligence, but we have to take into account that given the silver wave, given the fact that qualified personnel won't be there in every plant in the future, and also given the fact that 75% of the costs of water treatment are in the network, so you would be better off if you had more smaller size distributed systems a bit everywhere. That all calls for clever, digitized and smart systems.
But you have to give an answer.
And these systems, they need data to work. And I would see that as the exact type of data that can bring tremendous value. How fast would this come to market? I think between 5 and 10 years horizon, I would expect it to arrive. Not in the next...
That the regulation will accept that? So 5 to 10 years?
The regulation accepts it. It recommends it as an...
Yeah, but it is not a standalone. And
risk... No, not for compliance, but,
exactly.
But for risk management. Yeah, the purpose.
My approach there is to think 20% of the water in the world is used by industrial players. Industrial players, if you need to cut somewhere, where do you cut? Do you cut on the 70% of agriculture? Then good luck telling to people that they can't eat. Do you cut on the 10% that people are drinking and using to wash at home? Good luck to tell them that they can't use that. So where do you cut? You cut on the 20%. So they will be put under pressure to reduce their water input. In the past, they would open their valve in the basement and they get drinking water from the city. And then they flush it to the sewer. That was the old system. That system will vanish in the next decade, which means if you close the loop, what do? Do you hire dozens of water engineers and you run everything yourself? Or do you rely on technology giving you the right inputs to measure the right stuff at the right place and to feed the right models and the right brains? That is what is going to happen. And my crystal ball doesn't tell if Coliminder is the one. From what we discussed, it sounds like...
But it's about the process.
Basis to do it.
It's about the process.
But yeah, it's a sum of things. And I think that's the right direction to go. Absolutely. Just my 2 cents.
So that means that the industry will be the role model that in the end the regulator will accept, even for the municipalities.
I would even see one day where people will open their tap and receive water, which is excess water from their neighbor industry. But that's a different topic.
Yeah, and I don't think that we have to, or it would be wise to get rid of a traditional method, a culture-based method. I wouldn't claim that it would be a good idea to completely get rid of that, but to find a good balance. If there are new measurement methods and combination with machine learning, with automation, and you have a lot of different sensors, and you can compose a good view, a quality view of what you have as a water. And then you say, okay, and in addition, we do this. We can reduce, for instance, the lab tests on from 2 per day to 1 per 2 days or whatever. You know, it must be a complete picture. Everything must be covered. You need to be sure to supply your customer with high quality water. You want to do it highest efficiency, and you try to get everything you need for that. And then you evaluate the full picture and say, okay, and now we need some more here and some more there. And then that's fine. And maybe the new approach will not be that the regulator says you need to have a column and you need.
No, but it is about the measurement procedure. That is how what we're talking about. So how do you measure that? Is a regulator, if they tell you have to send it to a lab twice a year, right? Or will they accept a measurement like this to say, okay, you got the data here? And I don't believe it will happen in 5 to 10 years because the regulation process will just take too long. One day it will come. Hopefully we will live there at this time, hopefully. But it will come one day, clearly. But I don't think it will be so fast due to the fact the regulation.
If the industry picks it up,
doesn't matter.
You don't care about the drinking water sector. It's so small compared to...
If that is not your market, then for sure. But I mean, if it comes to the regulation perspective, from the lab perspective, it will take too long.
Didn't we just discuss that regulation will always be late and that states have a hard time to get up to speed with all of that? So let's start with the people which want to move, and it's not the municipal sector.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a right approach.
Circular economy, especially reuse, and especially those people who use it for their own purpose because they have an interest in efficiency. And
you get your own value. That's the best proof of concept. Well, I'd be excited to have this follow-up with you at the point where it's rolled out in the industry, at the point where we see it on another level. It might be 2 years, it might be 5 years, it might be, I don't know how long it takes, but that's an exciting journey you're on.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wolfgang, for being with us.
Pleasure meeting you. Pleasure discussing. I would love to go on for hours, you know.
Let's do that. Let's switch up the camera. Let's go on for hours.
Perfect. Thank you again, Wolfgang.
Thank you.
So you see, I think it was a good content today. I really loved the show. What did you think, Björn?
Sorry, I was just distracted again by your look, right?
Okay.
So come on. Please do me the favor. Please change the clothes next time.
Okay, you know what? Just because you asked for that, I dare you for the at least 2 next shows, I'll be dressed like
Please
that.
not.
Okay. Tell it in the comments if you don't want to dress like that.
That is even more worse than that we don't have any solution for the 2.2 billion. I was so disappointed by your top 3.
Actually, I'm not quite sure we don't have a solution because what we discussed in the deep dive is exactly the direction where we shall be heading.
We measure everything from the online bank.
Yeah, and we go for the end we can influence, which is maybe not the municipal part, which is maybe not the part which is controlled by the states. If we already solve the industrial part of the equation, well, with the 120% water rules, we might even by extension solve the communities which don't have access to water. So maybe that's the way to take it. And if I were right now an industrial, I would partner and team up with the water industry because that's the way out of this crisis.
You said partnering. I mean, I'm not sure that I want to partner with you anymore because if you want to dress like this for the next 3 shows, come on.
I'll really dress like that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for...
I'll stay like that.
I'm so sorry about the dress, really. I'm so sorry. Come on, we have to talk about that.